Neiman, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 630.
WMAL.
6:07 on WMAL. This is the Morning Majority. Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine's off today. Tori Clark, kind enough to come back in again this morning.
Nice of you to open the door and let me in.
You didn't learn your lesson yesterday, did you? You came back for more.
Very interesting people on the street when you're driving down at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Truckers, drunks, and cops.
Exactly.
It's my life.
It's interesting.
I've talked to all three, actually, on the side of the road.
As we come to work and we begin our day, a lot of people are just winding theirs down.
Yes.
Peter Morici joins us now. By the way, we'll get to your phone calls coming up at 1-888-630-9625 on the debt. University of Maryland economist. And now on Twitter at PMorici1. Follow him at PMorici1. Does that mean that there is an at P Morici without the one out there?
Yeah, there are a couple of Peter Moricis out there. There's a plumber in California,
really?
Quite an entrepreneur. And there's a techie about 10 years younger than me in Arlington. We've met a couple of times.
Cool.
So we're not related, but people keep looking for me or looking for him and get us confused.
Fantastic. Well, welcome to the Twitterverse.
Well, I'll add you right away.
I'm very quick on economics, but as you can see, I'm kind of slow to the gate when it comes to technology.
All right. Well, we want to get into economics now. That is. But I do want to ask you, because you've lived in this area for a long time. You know the politics of D.C. The Boehner bill not passing last night. What do you think that means for the political fight that's going on with a deal to be made?
Well, I think if the Republicans can't come to a conclusion as to what they want to cut, so they come up with some kind of bill, as their initial offer in the final negotiations, not only is Boehner very weak, but the Republican Party is dramatically weakened, because then the president can blame the shutdown and what may well be a second dip recession on them. It's very sad, but the American people don't do economics very well. Mm-hmm. There's many signs the economy is going into a second dip right now, okay? Mm-hmm. That it's actually happening. Look at the jobs numbers, durable goods orders, sluggish car sales, and so forth. That may or may not happen. It's very hard to call a recession. But if now it happens, they'll blame it on the shutdown, and Obama will blame the Republicans. And, Boehner will be a very weak speaker going forward, if that. And the president has the bully pulpit, and this may re-elect President Obama, which may be what he wants. I think that right now the Democrats are behaving very irresponsibly, as are the Republicans, and they're in campaign mode. It's like the Friday before a general election.
Right. Now, the Republicans, I can hear right now, say, listen, we already passed we passed cut, cap, and balance.
Amendment?
Yeah, we passed it.
Real.
So you're saying that there's no way...
You ought to be able to deliver a balanced budget with that then, shouldn't you? And I don't think they can balance the budget. So let's get real. I mean, if they want to be taken seriously, then they have to send over a serious bill.
Yeah, but Peter, I know we had this fight before. I mean, the balanced budget, man, I hear what you're saying. Hey, Congress should be able to balance the budget every single year. I mean, that's what their job is. I mean, there's nothing that says they can't budget the balance.
Sure.
But if you But if you pass it, then it forces them to do it down the road.
I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that a balanced budget from an economic perspective every year is not a good thing. I mean, Japan doesn't have balanced budgets, and it's not going to go bankrupt or anything like that, because their people save too much. So the government borrows from them and spends it on their behalf. With the kind of trade deficit we have right now, if we had a balanced budget, it would be 1933 outside. That doesn't mean we need a $1.6 trillion deficit, but to say that we should be at even is nuts. We are not a state. We are a national government, or a national government for a continental economy. No, this is like saying we should go back on the gold standard. I certainly think we need more fiscal discipline. One of the basic problems is that if you take the healthcare, higher education, and government together and say that's the government,
right,
because there's so much subsidies and even the private elements of those, we have a wonderfully efficient private sector relative to the Europeans and Japanese. And we have a terribly inefficient public sector, including the universities, the hospitals, the drug companies, and so forth. And we are in cognitive dissonance about the problem. For example, whenever I say we need to spend less on healthcare, I say, well, I want to be able to see a specialist right away. You try to see a urologist. Get online, fella. Or are we really contributing to drug research with all of those ads about leaky pipes and elderly women jogging around on TV? I mean, I was saying, Angela, I'm on TV. Why don't you get on a Boniva commercial?
Well, what do you think the percent of spending in GDP should be from the government? Government spending GDP.
Well, the Germans spend 12, we spend 19. And the Germans aren't complaining. They have a private system. We have a private system. Theirs is better. Ours is lousy.
Peter,
it's about time someone just said it's lousy. And tell Mr. Ryan that vouchers, giving old ladies at 80 years of age a voucher and say, now you go negotiate the price of Boniva with that drug company, is absolute sophistry. I boot him out of my classroom. I have to tell you that the only
Don't hold back.
Pelosi may be the Antichrist, all right, but Ryan is the town fool.
Well, who do you like then? What do you like?
I don't think he likes anybody.
Besides,
who I think is the adult in all this conversation?
Who?
Before, and he's the one who's being victimized. This is the case when the town goes mad, and that is poor Speaker Boehner.
I agree.
Right.
He is the adult in all this. I mean, Barack Obama is behaving exactly the way I would expect an inexperienced man. As you say in your business, there are some anchors that have good pipes and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we have in the White House.
Right. Peter, this is Tori. I am so with you on Boehner. He is acting the way we want our elected officials to act, working really, really hard, being very clear about important principles at stake, but understanding that leadership, at a certain point, leadership means maybe it's a slight personal political sacrifice, but you have to do it.
He reminds me very much of Gerald Ford with the point.
Exactly.
Very much so. Gerald Ford was a very good and decent man, and what Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi are demonstrating is that doesn't work. And what also Mr. Ryan and Mr. Cantor are displaying is brains aren't useful.
Well, I want to know what you think is going to happen. Let's say, theoretically, that we get to August 2nd.
I'm on the dime. Blitzer did that to me 8 days ago. So we're going to get a deal, and I said yes. Now I would say that, all I can give you is probabilities, but the probability is well less than 1 that we're going to get a deal. One of the reasons...
Well, hold a second. My question has to...
less than half, excuse me.
My question is, if we do get to August 2nd and there is no deal, and we are technically, beyond the deadline, how does that unfold in your mind?
Okay, it's going to be a low-grade version of Lehman Brothers. Right now, lots of folks have run the bank. They've pulled money out of money market accounts.
Yeah.
Money market accounts provide a lot of liquidity for American corporations, and that is drying up. So you have a lending problem because basically people are fleeing to insured accounts. The Treasury market can continue as long as the Federal Reserve, as long as the Treasury pays the interest on the debt. So I expect within a few days, if Geithner handles things well, to the Treasury market to stabilize. But there'll be a shortage of bank credit, government spending will go down, and the economy will start to decline.
So somebody in government would have to decide, we're going to pay these bills and not these bills.
Okay. Have you ever heard, I hate to sound like such a twit, but Tim Geithner say anything that wasn't said by someone else before and then printed in the New York Times? And it printed in the New York Times is not a roadmap for dealing with this. The state of Minnesota has managed to deal with This is basically a government shutdown. It's not a default. And we've had shutdowns before. But he's been basically running around saying, we can't prioritize. So now at the last minute, they're rushing around trying to come up with a plan. We have in the past shut down the government and stopped writing checks. But, Timothy Geithner thought if he could just bluff his way through this. I mean, one of the basic problems here is Barack Obama thinks that I had a conversation one day with Dick Morris. He said to me, if Barack Obama was in the room here with you, he'd be the smartest guy. I said, if I told you Tim Geithner was the brightest economist I know, would you think I was a smart guy? And Dick said, I see your point.
All right, Peter. Good to talk to you as always. We appreciate your time.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Peter Morici, economist, University of Maryland professor here with the Morning Majority. We'll take your phone calls coming up, 1-888-630-9625, and you can text feedback to 686.